Okay, 7th grade today. We're starting on our Home Learning 2.0, as we're calling it. So you should have gotten new packets in the mail. I know you guys got quite a few new packets, but as far as English goes, you should have gotten 2 packets, one for reading and one for writing. Today we're on the reading packet. So we're going to be starting on pages 13 and through 15 today. So this one's going to be super short because I'm just going to do the lesson with you and then let you guys do the activity on your own. I should be back to the whiteboard tomorrow. I've been having a lot of issues with recording things and stuff like that, so this is really what's been working for me, but we should be back to normal tomorrow. But just a reminder, we are Tuesday through Friday now, so there will be 4 lessons this week instead of just 3. So what we're going to be talking about to start with is summarizing literary text. We've talked a little bit about summary before. I know we talked about central idea in our last packet. That's going to be important here. So I talked about how central idea is all about summarizing things. So that's what we're talking about more, is a little bit more into that summary piece. So it says, have you ever seen a movie that you couldn't wait to tell your friends about? You probably described it to them using just a few sentences. A summary is a brief retelling of a story that includes the main characters, setting, and important events, including the conflict and its resolution. When summarizing, be sure to tell events in the order that they happen. Also, be sure to tell it using objective statements that are free of opinions or judgments. So what we just read there is that a summary, just like a central idea, gives us the most important information that happens in a story, movie, TV show, whatever specifically you're talking about. And then objective, what that word means is that it's just stating what actually happened in the story. No opinions, no, oh, I like this, I didn't like that, this character was mean, this character wasn't. That sort of thing is not what we're looking for in a summary. So we read the story below, which is in the form of like a little comic strip, and then we can make little notes if we want to about the character, settings, or events. But here it says, only the true king can free Excalibur. And we see this guy here, and then they say, let Arthur have a chance. We see this guy trying to pull it out, and then it says, all hail our new king. So I'm not going to make any notes, but I think maybe we can say that this guy, well, I'll make a little note here. This guy's probably the wizard of some kind. And this guy, because it says only the true king, it's this random guy with a mustache. We don't really know who he is. But then they say, let Arthur have a chance. Well, we can figure that this kid is probably Arthur, right? So in this first frame, we see that this guy, whoever he is, we have no idea, he's really struggling to, pull out this sword. Does he look weak and scrawny? No, he looks like he's bigger than Arthur, right? So we'll just call him strong guy, because that's what he is, I guess. So this strong guy, he can't even pull the sword out. He's got muscles, he's tough, he's buff, he can't pull it out. Now Arthur is just looking like he just is 12 and scrawny. He doesn't look like he's been at the gym a day in his life, but here he is trying to pull this sword out of the stone, okay? Well then, he does it successfully, right? Where is this all taking place? They say a medieval town square. It's taken place by a rock, right? I mean, we really don't know too many details about where it's taking place. Who are our characters here? They know that this is a real story, so that's why they're saying strong man. Well, that's what we called him, right? Merlin is this wizard guy, okay? I don't really think that it makes sense that they just went ahead and put his name there because we don't know who he is just by reading this. But in the actual story, that guy's name's Merlin. but he's the wizard that they're talking about. And then there's Arthur, which we know his name. So this is our setting and our characters. What's an important event that happens? Well, what's the first frame we have here? The strong guy can't pull the sword out of the stone, right? So even the strongest people in the town can't pull the sword out of the stone. Well, what's the super, super important event? Well, they let Arthur come up and try to pull it out, and he does it successfully, even though he's really thin and scrawny and all that kind of stuff. So if we put all of that together, that would make our summary. So we don't necessarily need to include the setting exactly, but we say, they give us an example, after many people try and fail to pull the sword Excalibur, which is the name of the sword. They're including a lot of detail they didn't include in the comic. I don't really like that, but many people fail to pull the sword from the stone. Arthur succeeds, and he becomes the new king of England, right? And I kind of left that out, but they say, all hail our new king. Well, whoever pulled the sword becomes the king. Or we do know that the sword's called Excalibur, because it says it right here, but whoever pulls the sword out of the stone becomes the new king. Well, he does it, so he becomes the new king. So after many people try and fail to pull the sword from the stone, Arthur succeeds and becomes the new king of England. We didn't really know it was in England, but that's fine. So the point of a summary is to retell important events and identify settings and characters in an objective, which means non-biased, non-opinionated, just factual way. Good readers summarize to check their understanding and remember important plot details. This should be super review. Hopefully it's really not too complicated, but we will go over page 14, and then you guys will do page 15 on your own. So let's look at 14 here. It says, read the first 3 paragraphs of an Algonquin legend. Hopefully that I pronounced that correctly. So it's Glooskap and the Wasis. Okay. And so it was that Glooskap, the mightiest and most fearsome of all the Algonquin warriors, had traversed through the land, defeating all his enemies. After many months, he returned to his village, where the people bowed their heads respectively. Upon arriving at his wigwam home, however, he glimpsed an odd creature sitting on the floor, sucking a piece of maple sugar candy, troubling no one. Glooskap asked his wife what the creature was, to which she responded that it was the Wasis, a fierce being who was undefeated and would remain so until the end of time. She warned her husband that if he meddled with the Wasis, Glooskap would be plagued with suffering. Glooskap was incensed that an enemy had infiltrated his home. He challenged the small creature to a test of strength, but the Wasis ignored him. Outraged, he ordered the Wasis to crawl to him and acknowledge him as his master, but the creature only laughed. So then it first tells us to explore how to answer this question. What is the best way to summarize just this section of the legend? Again, a summary includes characters, settings, important events, so we want to underline the elements in the text above. So let's look for, first, our characters. So who are our characters here? Well, we have Glooskap, however you say his name, okay? We have him. We come down here, we have his wife. We don't know her name, but it's his wife. That's all we really need to know. And then we have that creature, which is the Wasis. Okay, so that's all of our characters. Now, what about the setting? Well, what's a setting? It's when it took place, where it took place, all of those sort of things. So it takes place, he returns to his village, right? And it's in his wigwam home, okay? So that's where it took place, who was there. Now, let's identify 1 or 2 important events. So what's one of the first things that happens? Well, he arrives home, right? So we could either say he returned to his village. We don't need to know about the people bowing their heads. That's not really important. Or we could say he arrived at his home. Okay, so what are our important details after that? So we would see that Glooskap becomes incensed that an enemy's in his home. So he challenged it. to a test of strength, but they ignored him. And then he ordered him to acknowledge him, but the creature only laughed, right? Those are really important details in this text. You see that we did not even highlight the majority of this. Obviously, we're highlighting the end because that's kind of like our climax, or our most interesting or intense part of the story. So if we go down here, it says summary should also be, which we've touched a little bit on this. We're going to go a little bit more into it. It says summary should also be objective or free of opinions and judgments. That's what I talked about when we were talking about unbiased, that sort of thing. Read the following summary and cross out any opinion words or statements. Then check your work against the bullet points. So let's just look at this here. If you can, cover that bottom part. So it says, Gluscap is an awesome Alcuin warrior. This is an example of a summary that someone else did. So you need to mark out things that are objective or too opinionated. So Gluscap is an awesome Algonquin warrior who comes home to his village after defeating his enemies. I think it's funny how he finds the Wassa sitting on the floor and thinks it's another enemy. He foolishly challenges and orders the Wassas around, but the little creature won't obey him. Let's look at the first sentence because we have one in each sentence. So Gluscap is an awesome Algonquin warrior who comes home to his village after defeating his enemies. Is he an Algonquin warrior who comes home to his village after defeating his enemies? Is that true? Yes. But what about this is biased or says an opinion? Is it a fact that he's awesome? No. So we need to mark that out because that is the biased or opinionated part in that sentence. Now, the next one says, I think it's funny how. We need to stop right there. If you say, I think, is that automatically makes an opinion, right? If you think something, it's not necessarily a fact. It's just something that you believe. So we would mark out, I think it's funny how. Because that's all that's doing is saying that this specific part of the thing, or the text, or the movie, or whatever it is, they found that funny, and that's not important to the summary. Because when you're telling someone about something, they don't necessarily care whether you think it was funny or not. They just want to know what actually happened in the movie or the writing or whatever it is that you're talking with them about. So the last sentence says, he foolishly challenges and orders the Wassas around, but the little creature isn't obeying him. Does he challenge and order the Wassas around and the creature won't obey him? Yes. Is it foolish that he does that? Well, that depends on how you look at it, right? So we're going to go ahead and mark out foolishly because that is, again, an opinion piece and it needs to be crossed out. So if you want to, with a partner, you can discuss another important event that should be added to the summary to make it more complete, and then take turns summarizing it objectively. You can do that with someone at home if you wish to. But basically what we have above is a complete summary. So it says, Gluscap is an awesome... take out the awesome. Gluscap is an Algonquin warrior who comes home to his village after defeating his enemies. He finds the Wassas sitting on the floor and thinks it's another enemy. He challenges and orders the Wassas around, but the little creature won't obey him. So if we take out those words, we have a good summary. So we just need to make sure that we're avoiding putting opinion pieces into our summaries, because a summary is not talking about how we feel about the story or how we feel about the subject. It is just talking about what actually happened in the piece. So now I need you guys to do page 15 on your own. It's just going to ask you one question. All you have to do is answer one question today. It's going to ask, two questions. So you're just going to answer what the best summary is and then explain why the other ones are not good summaries for this. So if you guys have any questions, I'll be available in office hours today.